Okay, so uh, today's topic will be anxiety. Uh, Somebody asked me, she is been into spirituality for a while, but she still is facing the issue. So we cannot discount the need for fixing this issue. The anxiety is one of the worst manifestation in the today's age of the disorders of the mind. Not that mind has any problems in the sense, but mind is confused. That's all. And all the confusion is because of only one thing, lack of clarity. Clarity we don't have in our life. And that is the reason for not just the anxiety, but so many disorders, whether it's the stress or hatred or greed or whatever you name it, all the vrittis and vasanas of the mind are built from only one thing, the ignorance, the confusion. So the cloudiness of the mind itself is the reason for creating all these disorders. But the question comes, why does this happen and why can't we come out of it? That is the bottom line. Anxiety may be just one of the issue, but most of the disorders that happen, they happen because we are feel kind of trapped into it. And who is feeling trapped into it is the ego. First of all, anxiety happens because we want certain outcomes in the world and any situation that we are in. Say you are taking an exam and you have prepared so well and all that, but you're anxious. What's going to be happening? We don't know. So this uncertainty of the future leads to anxiety because our mind keeps on racing towards the future, which is unpredictable because future is future. It's wide open. Who knows what can happen in the exam or whether exam will happen or not? None of these are possibilities that we know because the future is being created by the consciousness, and consciousness is infinite. It has infinite possibilities that can happen tomorrow. Tomorrow may be an earthquake. The examiner, the exam paper, and the student themselves may disappear. Who knows? I'm not saying it's going to happen. All I'm saying is that possibilities are endless. And yet we want one finite result to happen. That will make us happy. That pass the exam. That's it. So, but whatever is required, instead of doing that properly, we keep on worrying about it. So the anxiety is because of expectation of certain results to happen, certain outcomes to come out of the situation that you're going through. And because there is uncertainty, it's the uncertainty that causes the restlessness, the anxiety, the stress, the suffering. It's all because of, if somebody had said that, okay, you're going to pass, then obviously anxiety will disappear. Somebody says you're going to fail, no matter what you do, it's certain, then also anxiety will disappear. Then at least you will have the remorse, and then you will know what to do. If I'm going to fail tomorrow, then at least I know maybe I better study next time when I take the second exam. So certainty always is good, whether it's positive or negative, but this uncertainty kills people. And unfortunately, future always is going to remain uncertain. But this is where, so the question is, who is suffering? The ego is suffering. The ego means what? Means you, your mind, your body, and all your acquisitions, all your possessions, all your connections, whether it's your parents or relatives, your friends, your house and cars and whatever, or every single material and non-material possessions, which are non-material possessions. X number of people like me. X number of people admire me. X number of people give me Facebook clicks and they wave the hands and whatever, So all this attention, everything centers around one thing, me. The definition of me is my body and my mind. That's it. And so ego is living in that world, and it is surrounded by this mind. Me is ego, and mine is its possessions, but the totality is called the ego. So ego is suffering. Ego is suffering because ego wanted certain outcome to happen. But why we can't find the way out of it, that's interesting. Because we are suffering. Our attention is on the suffering itself, this restlessness, the anxiety, the stress, all these things is overwhelming us so much that we cannot even find the solution for it. Because to find a solution, we have to be separating away from it. We have to find an outlet first to independently. If you put your child in the maze and he or she is confused and doesn't know where to go, and here you are on balcony looking at, if she makes a left turn, she will be definitely out of the maze. But it's easy for us to say, but she herself is in the maze. She has no way to see the way out. And that's why she's suffering and crying and all those things. But her path, she has to find herself. Looking at for the top from the deck, you can easily mention it. So a person has no way of getting out of her own problem. So when somebody is suffering with anxiety, what ego is doing it, ego hates this suffering. Ego wants to be happy all the time. Of course, who doesn't? But this is the reality. The reality is that suffering is here. But when you cannot come out of that suffering, you cannot come out of the anxiety, stress situation itself to find a solution. And that's where it perpetuates and keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. So the suffering is our focus, not the solution. So the real solution of suffering is to find the cause for it. As I said earlier, because we wanted a certain outcome, our insistence that we want only a certain outcome to happen out of this situation, it generates the uncertainty. Because we want certain results. Certainty, expectation of certainty leads to uncertainty. If we didn't ask for any certain results, and you say, okay, whether I pass or fail doesn't matter to me, then there is no anxiety at all. But it's easy to say, but very difficult for the person to be in that situation and not expect the results or not expect the certainties. But that is the immaturity of the mind. But because we are so much lost in the suffering itself, it's like a house is burning and you're caught in that house. And all of a sudden you realize that there is flames all around you. And you start crying that, why is this happening to me? Why is this flame is killing me? I'm burning. But you're not thinking about getting out of the house. That's where the problem is. So in the anxiety, stress situations, you suffer. The fire was the result of, say, the boiler room or whatever may be the case. But fire is engulfing you. And you need to get out of the house. You're just not thinking it. All you are, they keep complaining that some help is going to come and get me out of here. But I am suffering right now. I don't know what else to do. So you're suffering. So the anxiety is like that fire. It's burning you, but you're not thinking how to get out of it. So what we need to do is accept the suffering, that yes, I am suffering, no question about it. So once you accept something, it relieves you by finding the solution for it. So when you accept the suffering doesn't bother you anymore. So now ego does not have to get involved in the suffering portion. So now ego becomes a little more mature and it starts thinking that why did this suffering happen? And that is the major transformation happening at the mind level. So mind will analyze and mind will try to think, and little by little will come to a realization that because I want certain outcome, I want certainty, uncertainty bothers me. If I'm ready to accept the uncertainty, it won't bother me. Of course, again, as I said, it's easy to think that way, but not easy to do. But at least now you're shifting the gears. Now the ball is in your court. That because you wanted a certain results, the uncertainty followed and you're suffering. So the solution is not to expect certain results, not to expect the certainty. But how can you not expect the certainty? That is the issue. So everybody wants to pass in the exam, no question about it. Everybody wants to get out of the house. But the question is how? So now that you have realized that the anxiety is a symptom of an underlying disease, and that underlying disease is expectations of something. Desire of an outcome was generated by your ego itself. And why did it generate? Because it wanted to be happy. It wanted to pass the exams. Everybody wants it, no question about it. But your desire that you want to pass and you want only passing, you're not ready to accept anything else, that creates an issue. So ego wanted certain results. So now the fault goes on to the ego itself. So the ego, you have it for a long time, which is centered around your mind and the body. So to go beyond the mind and the body, you don't know where to go. And that's again another issue, because you are locked up in your very confined situation of your mind and the body. All you are thinking is about you. And this is where the meditation comes in. Of course, at the time of anxiety, it's very difficult to go beyond the anxiety itself, let alone to find your own fault, but then go beyond your own fault and find a solution. But there is a path. So deep, intuitive, reflective meditation, analytical meditation is the most important thing you can do in life if you want to change yourself. Whatever may be the problem of the mind, whether it's anxiety, mad, moh, krodh, maya, whatever, they all have sprung from the ego itself. So all this solution also will have to come down to realizing the futility, realizing the fakeness of the ego itself. And again, saying that is not easy because you are in sansar. Sansar is based on interactions of ego. The moment you sit down to even analyze the problem, a friend comes in. Come on, Shanik, let's go out. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a movie. Or let's go for entertainment program. Your mind is continuously occupied with something or someone in the sansar. Nothing for nothing, say, okay, let's go for a hike. But then what? You come back from a hike. That's it. But your mind was occupied. The main thing is to go within. For that, the path is meditation. So in meditation, when you run the analysis of the whole thing, it starts becoming very clear to you. And this is the time where you need to be aware of yourself. It's like a court. So there is a suffering. And suffering happened because of faulty thinking that you wanted, your desire led to the suffering. So suffering, we take it out of the court. So only the criminal is in the court. So the judge is you, criminal is also you, and punishment also will go to you. So there is a court going on. When you analyze very deeply, you need awareness, first of all. So awareness, this is a court of awareness. The criminal is you. The crime has been committed by you, all right? That you wanted something more than what is offered to you in a current state, right? You deviated from the present and you ventured into the future. The awareness does not know anything about it. Awareness knows only the present. So you created a crime of bringing the future into the present moment. And same thing for depression. Whether you did something in the past, you have regrets of the past, you bringing the past into the present. Again, another crime. And crime meaning not that you're going to be being punished. This is understanding. This is deep reflection. And with analysis, you're going to realize where your fault is. Only by realizing your fault, you can release, get a power, internal power of awareness itself to solve the problem. Because awareness not only makes you realize your mistake, but it also gives a solution. This is not a doctor, okay, you can just go there, just, okay, diagnose my problem, but then they say, okay, I don't know what to do about it. You go. It's not as simple. If your car is not working, where would you prefer it to go? In a local mechanic who just went 3 months of training, took a diploma, or the guy who actually made your car? Obviously, the guy who made your car is in Detroit. The consciousness in its pure state was unmodified. Your desires generated vrittis and vasanas. And then you departed from the consciousness itself, which was pure, pristine. But you decided to have desires from the surrounding world, thinking that that's where the joy is going to come. That's where the happiness is going to come. And what happened? The ego was created to achieve something in life from some source. And of course, you want it, but then everybody else also wants it. If I want $1 million, everybody wants $1 million. But government has printed only certain number of dollars. So friction is inevitable. So if you put a bet in a lottery, and whether you win or not, we don't know. But the lottery prize is fixed. Same thing, whatever you're wanting, whether you want a position, whether you want to be a president, whether you want to be whatever a leader of a community, whether you want everybody's attention to that you look handsome or beautiful, but everybody wants that. So the question is the friction, who's going to win? That generates the uncertainties. So your wanting something was the creation of your ego, all centered around. So by analytical reflection within, in the presence of full awareness, you realize that what was your mistake. The awareness also gives you the solution. So that comes next. So when your own mistake is realized and the awareness makes you realize there is something wrong with your ego. There is something wrong having that ego. So there is something wrong with your belief that you are this and you are this. So that's when the higher levels of meditations come, like we've been doing it time to time. And that awareness becomes the entity, which is impartial. It has nothing against you. It has created, gave you the existence, and it gave the existence to everything else. The rule of the existence is that everybody is equal. Whether the pebble on the ground has existence, a rat has an existence, an earthworm has an existence, and you have an existence. At existential level, you cannot exist as you are. So the ego has to go down. So when you realize this, you bow down. You let go yourself. You surrender yourself. And when you surrender yourself, a remarkable thing happens. You realize that your desires were wrong. No question about it. That was your childishness. That was your ignorance. And that's when the inner knowledge surfaces. That's when you realize that inner peace is within you when you have no desires. When your ego is subdued, all its difficulties, all its ramifications, the mad, moh, krodh, maya, anxiety, stress, everything boils down to only one mistake, the ignorance. The ignorance that I am this ego. And the solution is knowledge. The cause of suffering is avidya. And vidya is the ultimate knowledge of the self. So anytime you're suffering, Do this step by step. Do not get caught up in the suffering. Realize that there has to be some mistake somewhere that led to this suffering. Suffering is only a symptom. Like you have a 102-degree fever. You want to know why you have a fever, whether you have a COVID or pneumonia. Until you find the cause of it, your solution will not happen. But if you keep on treating the symptom, which is all these manifestations, for example, anger, the same thing. You wanted something and somebody took it away. You're angry at the person, naturally. But then it's what do you expect? In the battlefield where egos are fighting with egos, what do you expect, right? But you wanted something, and that was your problem. So the same thing, these are all ramifications of having the ego. So once that is realized, you go beyond, and the consciousness gives you solution also. That's why the consciousness is called Rajvaidya. Rajvaidya is where, when all your ailments, all your attempts to get better fail, you go to the local doctor, so many of them. Nobody can solve it, but the Rajvaidya is the ultimate wisdom. So consciousness is our Rajvaidya. You bring all your sufferings. There is not a single suffering that it will not find a solution for. So this is, in a nutshell, how to deal with the anxiety, but in reality, it's how to deal with all the mental aberrations. So much for today. Thank you for listening.